The galaxy was a vast, intricate tapestry of civilizations, some ancient, some new, but all more powerful than Earth. Humanity, a species once confined to a single, fragile planet, was considered insignificant by the galactic powers that roamed the stars. Few took the time to even acknowledge their existence beyond the occasional curious observation. However, no one could predict how the spark of defiance ignited from this tiny world would eventually challenge the very fabric of galactic supremacy. It all began in the early 22nd century, when humanity had only recently mastered space travel beyond their solar system. Their arrival at the edge of the Milky Way was met with bemusement. To the inhabitants of the galaxy, humans were little more than an amusing footnote, a species that had somehow survived their chaotic world long enough to build clumsy ships, venture into the stars, and stumble upon the intergalactic community. Humans had no advanced weapons, no immense fleets, no centuries of galactic wisdom. Yet, they had something no other species could quite explain, an unrelenting spirit. The first major contact with galactic civilizations was both a blessing and a curse. Humanity's discovery of an ancient alien artifact, one that had the power to unlock new, unimaginable technologies, set in motion a sequence of events that would alter the course of their history. The artifact had been dormant for millennia, and the humans had stumbled upon it by accident. They had no idea that it was more than just a relic. It was the key to an unknown power that could change the balance of the entire galaxy. This discovery caught the attention of a variety of galactic empires, but none of them were prepared for what would happen next. The artifact's technology was complex, and the human scientists struggled to unlock its potential. But the one thing humanity had going for them was their relentless curiosity and ability to work together under pressure. While the rest of the galaxy's empires debated and fought over who would control the artifact, humans moved quickly and efficiently, quietly working together as they discovered the artifact's true capabilities. The first breakthrough came when human engineers figured out how to activate a dormant signal embedded within the artifact, a signal that, when triggered, allowed humans to access a unique, highly advanced form of energy that had been thought impossible. They named it ether, an energy capable of bending the laws of physics itself. Upon hearing of this success, the major galactic powers saw humans not as harmless children anymore, but as a significant threat. It was a race against time. Would humans perfect the technology before the galactic empires could intervene? And if they did, how could they possibly defend themselves against such immense power when they were outnumbered, outgunned, and under-resourced? The first of the empires to act was the Zelenaar Dominion, a militaristic species known for their ruthless efficiency and vast fleets. They were an ancient race with centuries of war experience, and they decided that Earth's newfound power must be neutralized before it could disrupt their control over the galaxy. They sent their most fearsome warriors, the Thor, elite soldiers who had never been defeated in battle. The Zelenaar forces arrived at Earth's doorstep in record time. They were not here to negotiate, nor were they interested in diplomacy. They were here to take the artifact by force. What they did not anticipate was how quickly humanity would mobilize. In the chaos of their arrival, Earth's leaders made a decision that would forever mark their species' destiny. The humans, united under the banner of the United Earth Alliance, made an unprecedented move. They struck first. Using the ether energy, they forged new weapons of unimaginable power. It wasn't just their firepower that caught the Zelenaar by surprise, it was their resilience. While the Thor expected the humans to flee or surrender, what they encountered instead were warriors who fought with everything they had, who were willing to sacrifice everything for the survival of their world. Humanity's first battle was a brutal one, with losses on both sides. But the Thor, with their advanced technology and years of battle experience, had underestimated one key factor: the spirit of humankind. As the war raged on, it became clear to the Zelenaar that they were facing something far more dangerous than they had anticipated. A tiny civilization, once overlooked, had awakened and was now refusing to bow down. By the time the Zelenaar began to retreat, they realized that Earth's fate would no longer be decided by others. The humans had proven that they were not just survivors, They were a force to be reckoned with. But this was only the beginning. What had started as a simple clash of civilizations would soon escalate, drawing the attention of even greater and more dangerous enemies. The galaxy had underestimated humanity, but it wouldn't be long before they realized just how costly that mistake had been. The next phase of the war would reveal even more about the humans' potential. But for now, humanity had won its first victory in space, a victory that would echo throughout the galaxy for centuries to come. With the Zelenar Dominion's retreat, humanity had gained an unexpected victory. However, the humans were far from naive. They knew this victory would not go unchallenged. The galaxy had many empires, some far older and more powerful than the Zelenar, and they were watching closely. They had seen the raw potential of the human race, and they were already making their plans to ensure that the humans would never rise to a level where they could challenge galactic rule. While Earth celebrated its first success, a shadow war had begun in the depths of space. The Zelenar's defeat was only the beginning of humanity's trials. Their victory over the Kalthor had caught the attention of the Rinthal Federation, an ancient and secretive empire known for its mastery of psychological warfare and subterfuge. The Rinthal were not a species that sought direct combat. They preferred to manipulate events from the shadows, using espionage, deception, and coercion. The Federation had already infiltrated several human governments, planting agents within Earth's political systems, spreading disinformation, and attempting to destabilize the fragile alliances humans had made in their struggle for survival. As humanity began to form alliances with other species, including the insectoid Draconi and the telepathic Selith, the Rinthal took advantage of every rift and disagreement, manipulating both sides to make the humans' position more precarious. At the same time, a secret war was waged within humanity itself. Earth's leaders were no longer just fighting against alien invaders. They were struggling to maintain unity within their own species. While most humans were united in their desire to defend Earth, there were factions that saw the galactic conflict as an opportunity for power. Some sought to form their own alliances with alien races, dreaming of dominating the stars for their own benefit. Others, terrified of the power humans now wielded with the ether energy, sought to suppress it altogether, fearing it might lead to even greater conflicts. The human resistance against the Rinthal infiltration came from an unlikely source, a group of scientists and intelligence officers who had once been dismissed as fringe theorists. These individuals, led by Dr. Elena Kaur, had been investigating the strange anomalies in the data from the Zelenar conflict and had begun to realize that there was something more to the attack than simple conquest. They uncovered a web of covert manipulations stretching back decades, as the Rinthal had quietly woven their influence into the very fabric of human civilization. Dr. Kaur and her team worked tirelessly to expose the truth, but the Rinthal were always one step ahead. They utilized their psychic abilities to cloud the minds of those who would stand in their way, sending agents who could make anyone believe their lies. The resistance had no choice but to resort to extreme methods. They infiltrated the highest echelons of Earth's power, often risking their lives just to deliver critical information. Their efforts were the only thing keeping the Rinthal from completely dismantling humanity's unity. Meanwhile, the human fleet, now bolstered by the use of ether-powered ships, began to explore the galaxy with greater ambition. But each step forward seemed to reveal a new threat. Every planet they encountered had its own dangers, and every new ally brought new complications. The Draconi, though fierce allies, had their own code of honor that often clashed with humanity's direct approach. The Selith, with their deep connection to the psychic realms, could not always trust humans' unpredictable nature, and their communications were often cryptic, leaving many humans frustrated with their lack of direct support. Yet despite the mounting pressure, humanity's resilience only seemed to grow. They learned quickly from their mistakes, adapting their tactics and technologies at a pace that left the galaxy's empires reeling. Every challenge became an opportunity, every loss a lesson. It was clear now, humanity was no longer a small, isolated species. They had become a presence in the galaxy that could not be ignored. The Rinthal, unable to defeat humanity through their usual methods of subterfuge, began to escalate their efforts. Their spies were discovered and hunted down, their psychological attacks growing more erratic. In a desperate move, they decided to take the conflict to the next level. They sent one of their most dangerous agents, a being known only as the Shade, into Earth's core. The Shade was a master of illusion and deception, able to assume any form, infiltrate any organization, and sow chaos from within. The Federation hoped that by assassinating key figures in the human government, they could fracture the unity that had begun to form. What the Rinthal didn't anticipate was how far humanity would go to protect their own. The Shade's arrival set off a wave of paranoia and distrust, but it also rallied humanity like never before. The Shade's actions led to the creation of a new, elite force, one that would operate in complete secrecy, using their own psychic abilities to combat the Rinthal directly. They became the guardians of humanity, warriors trained in the art of defense against mental manipulation and illusion. As Earth's forces rallied, they began to make small but significant victories in the war for control over their own future. But the Rinthal were not the only power watching. Far beyond the borders of the galaxy, other, even more dangerous forces were beginning to take notice. The galaxy was changing, and humanity's place in it was still uncertain, but one thing was clear: they had become a force that would no longer be overlooked. The war was far from over, and it was only a matter of time before humanity would be forced to face even greater threats, forces whose power could dwarf even the Rinthal's shadow games. The war between humanity and the galaxy's dominant powers continued to escalate, but what began as a fight for survival quickly became a battle for dominance across the stars. The human spirit, once underestimated, had sparked a ripple of change that now threatened to unravel the delicate balance of galactic power. With the Rinthal Federation's infiltration thwarted, humanity's leaders turned their attention outward. They had emerged from the shadows of their own insecurities and strife, and now they sought to fortify their position in the galaxy. The world was no longer united under a single banner. It was now the United Earth Alliance, a sprawling coalition of nations, corporations, and military factions that had learned to put aside their differences for the greater good. But this newfound unity was fragile, and the pressures of war would test it at every turn. The Draconi, the insectoid warriors who had initially helped humanity against the Zelaar Dominion, grew increasingly restless. They were proud of their alliance with humans, but their culture placed high value on personal honor, and the humans' increasingly aggressive expansion into the galaxy was beginning to clash with their own code. The Draconi had no desire to be pawns in another species' battle for control, and tensions were rising between their people and humanity. Meanwhile, the Selith, the telepathic race that had aided humanity from the shadows, had become more aloof. Their connection to the psychic realm made them increasingly wary of humanity's reckless use of ether energy. They feared that if humans continued to harness such power, it would have consequences beyond their understanding, potentially ripping apart the fabric of the universe itself. Their whispers among their own people were growing louder. Perhaps the humans were a dangerous anomaly, one that needed to be contained before their unchecked growth led to cosmic catastrophe. As the alliance began to fracture, another threat emerged, a shadowy figure known only as the Sovereign. Little was known about the Sovereign, but their reach stretched across many worlds, and their forces were vast. The Sovereign was a leader of a faction of mercenaries, opportunists, and disillusioned exiles who believed the galaxy's ruling powers had grown too complacent and corrupt. They viewed humanity's rise as an opportunity to topple the established order. With their mastery of guerrilla warfare and unconventional tactics, the Sovereign's faction began to destabilize colonies, sabotage supply lines, and spread propaganda that painted humanity as a threat to the entire galaxy. The United Earth Alliance knew that they needed to act quickly to prevent a complete collapse of their fragile alliances, but their efforts to maintain peace and unity were constantly thwarted by those who saw the rise of humanity as a threat to their own power. As humanity's position grew stronger, the enemies of the Alliance only grew bolder, each one pushing for their own vision of galactic control. Despite the mounting pressure, humanity refused to back down. Their leaders, including General Ivan Petrov, a respected military strategist and former war hero, worked tirelessly to maintain the unity of Earth's factions. But the deeper they delved into the galactic conflicts, the more they realized how little they truly understood about the larger forces at play. One such force came in the form of an ancient race, the Archelians. The Archelians were a highly advanced species that had once ruled the galaxy in the distant past, only to mysteriously disappear centuries ago. There were legends of their technology, which was far beyond anything the current civilizations could imagine, and it was rumored that the Archelians had left behind hidden caches of knowledge and weapons that could change the course of the war. The human fleet, under Petrov's leadership, began to scour the galaxy for any signs of Archelian artifacts. They were determined to find a way to use the Archelian technology to tip the scales in their favor, but this pursuit was not without its dangers. The Archelians had left behind an intricate web of traps and guardians, devices that would only activate if the wrong individuals tried to uncover their secrets. Many human expeditions had already failed, and the cost of these missions was mounting. Yet, the promise of ancient knowledge was too great for the United Earth Alliance to ignore. As the search for Archelian artifacts intensified, the tension between humanity and its allies reached a boiling point. The Dracani had grown tired of the constant push for military expansion, and their leaders began to speak openly of withdrawing from the alliance if the humans did not halt their campaigns. The Selith, on the other hand, had begun to withdraw their support entirely, their psychic broadcasts warning of the dangers humanity was courting with the ether energy. In the midst of these tensions, General Petrov received an encrypted message from a mysterious source, claiming to have knowledge of the Archelians' true location. The message was signed only with a single name, the Seeker. The message led Petrov's fleet to an uncharted system, one that was shielded from the galaxy's major powers by a dense nebula. Here, humanity discovered something they had never imagined, an Archelian city, untouched and undisturbed. But this discovery came with a catch. The city was not abandoned. The Archelians had not vanished, they had merely gone into hiding, watching the galaxy's civilizations grow and fall, waiting for a time when they would once again rise to power. The Seeker, it turned out, was one of the last of the Archelian race, and she had spent centuries preparing for this moment. She revealed to Petrov and his fleet the true purpose of the Archelians' departure. They had foreseen the rise of a dangerous, uncontrolled force that could threaten the stability of the entire galaxy, humanity's ether energy. The Archelians had left behind their knowledge, hoping that humanity would either reject the power or use it wisely. The Sovereign, meanwhile, had gathered a coalition of mercenaries and anarchists who saw the rise of the Archelians as the final step in toppling the galactic order. They began to move their forces, and a new phase of war had begun. The battle for control over the galaxy's future had become a contest not just of armies, but of ideologies. Would humanity continue its rapid ascent, or would they fall into chaos, their power turning against them? The storm of alliances had only just begun, and its outcome would shape the future of the galaxy. But one thing was certain, humanity was no longer just fighting to survive. They were fighting for their place in the stars. The discovery of the Archelian city was both a blessing and a curse. Humanity had learned ancient secrets that could help them solidify their place in the galaxy. But it was also a warning, one that came with an incredible cost. The knowledge gained from the Archelians revealed the terrifying truth about their own power and the danger it posed to the balance of the galaxy. Yet, the revelation came too late. As tensions between humanity and their galactic allies reached a breaking point, a much darker force emerged from the shadows, ready to bring the galaxy to its knees. The Sovereign's forces had grown rapidly. What started as a scattered faction of mercenaries and exiles had coalesced into a powerful and united coalition, drawing in both disgruntled species and those who sought to overthrow the galactic order. The Sovereign himself, a charismatic and enigmatic leader, was a master tactician. His coalition struck quickly, using guerrilla warfare and sabotage to destabilize key systems. At the heart of their campaign was a desire to annihilate the existing power structures and create a new order, one in which the old empires would fall and humanity would be at the center, controlling the flow of power through the galaxy. For the first time, humanity found itself in the crossfire of not just one, but multiple factions vying for control. The Draconi, once their allies, had begun to question whether they were aiding humanity's rise or simply enabling a species that could eventually threaten their own existence. The Seleth had long withdrawn their support, growing increasingly disillusioned with humanity's reckless use of ether energy. Their fears were not unfounded. Humanity's use of ether was growing unchecked, and its effects were beginning to ripple through space-time in ways that no one could fully understand. The Archelians, meanwhile, had warned humanity that the very power they had unlocked, the ether, was unstable. It was an energy unlike anything else in the universe, a force that could bend the fabric of reality itself. While the Archelians had been able to contain its potential eons ago, they had never anticipated that a young species like humanity would discover and wield it with such abandon. The Seeker, the last of the Archelians, revealed that the ether's power was linked to an ancient galactic entity, a cosmic force that had once been sealed away by the Archelians themselves. If humanity continued to tap into its potential without understanding the consequences, the galaxy could be torn apart. In their desperation, humanity's leaders sought to stop the ether's spread. They formed a special task force, led by General Ivan Petrov and Dr. Elena Kor, to study the origins of the ether and discover how to control it before it led to complete destruction. The task force set off on a dangerous journey to the deepest parts of space, hoping to find more Archelian artifacts and knowledge to prevent the collapse of the galaxy. But the Sovereign's forces were already one step ahead. They had intercepted intelligence about the task force's mission and had begun tracking them. As the Sovereign's mercenaries closed in, the galaxy's empires took notice of the growing crisis. The Rinthal Federation, still reeling from their failed attempts to infiltrate humanity, seized the opportunity to strike once again. This time, however, they were no longer interested in subterfuge. They launched a full-scale assault on the United Earth Alliance, hoping to eliminate the human threat once and for all. With their psychic powers, they infiltrated human command structures, turning former allies into unwitting spies. The Draconi, torn between their respect for humanity and their growing fear of its unchecked power, chose a path of neutrality. They refused to participate in the war, but they also refused to remain passive. They began fortifying their borders, preparing for a future where the galaxy's power structures would inevitably collapse, and they would need to protect their people from whatever came next. With the galaxy in chaos, General Petrov and his team fought to maintain the United Earth Alliance's unity. As he led his forces against the Rinthal and the Sovereign's coalition, he found himself facing an even greater challenge: the fear of humanity's own destructive potential. The ether, once a symbol of hope and power, had become a ticking time bomb. The task force's investigation revealed that, if not properly contained, the ether would begin to destabilize entire star systems, tearing apart planets and causing massive ripples in the fabric of space-time. Humanity could very well be the cause of the galaxy's destruction. In a desperate bid to prevent the worst from happening, Petrov and Kor made a dangerous decision. They decided to risk everything on a plan to sever humanity's connection to the ether, even if it meant losing the power that had given them such an advantage in the first place. They hoped that by severing the ether's influence, they could stop the cosmic force from awakening. But this plan came with enormous risks, and the consequences of failure were unimaginable. As the final battle between the United Earth Alliance and the forces of the Rinthal and Sovereign began, humanity stood at the precipice of a new age, or the brink of annihilation. The galaxy's future would be determined not just by the outcome of the war, but by the very nature of the power humanity had unlocked. If they could control it, they might save the galaxy. If they failed, they would be the ones to destroy it. The veil of uncertainty that had hung over humanity's future was about to shatter, revealing the true cost of their rise to power. The galaxy was changing, and in the wake of their decisions, nothing would ever be the same again. The final battle was a maelstrom of fire and destruction. Humanity's forces clashed with the Rinthal Federation and the Sovereign's mercenary coalition in a series of brutal engagements, each more devastating than the last. The United Earth Alliance's fleet, bolstered by the once-feared power of the ether, fought valiantly to hold its ground, but the galaxy's many factions had grown wary of humanity's rise. The Rinthal, using their psychic abilities, infiltrated human ranks, sowing confusion and fear. Meanwhile, the Sovereign's forces employed brutal, unconventional tactics, making it difficult for Earth's military to maintain cohesion. At the heart of the conflict, General Ivan Petrov led a daring assault on the Rinthal's flagship, hoping to strike a decisive blow against their leadership. However, as the battle raged, the consequences of humanity's connection to the ether became more apparent. The energy that had given humanity the upper hand was beginning to destabilize. Waves of raw, uncontrolled ether energy surged through the battlefield, causing massive rifts in space-time. Ships disintegrated in moments. Entire fleets evaporated into the chaotic energy storm that raged uncontrollably across the stars. It was in this chaos that humanity's greatest fear began to take shape, the awakening of the cosmic force bound to the ether. The entity, an ancient, primordial being of unimaginable power, began to stir. The Seeker, the last of the Archelians, had warned them that this force would rise if humanity continued to wield the ether, and now it was happening. The cosmic force had once been sealed away by the Archelians in an effort to prevent it from destroying the galaxy. But humanity, in their reckless pursuit of power, had unknowingly set it free. The Sovereign, knowing the stakes of this awakening, quickly shifted his focus. He had long believed that the galaxy needed to be remade, and he saw this as an opportunity to destroy the current order and rebuild it in his image. As the cosmic force rose, the Sovereign activated a network of devices across the galaxy, hoping to harness its energy and control it for himself. However, his understanding of the force was limited, and his efforts only made the situation worse. The cosmic force, now awakened, lashed out in an uncontrollable fury, annihilating entire fleets and warships in its wake. In the midst of the chaos, General Petrov, Dr. Elena Kor, and the remaining members of their task force were faced with an impossible decision. The ether's power, if left unchecked, would consume everything. The force was growing stronger by the second, and the Galactic factions had no hope of stopping it without cooperation. But the United Earth Alliance was no longer the cohesive, united force it had once been. The Draconi had withdrawn, the Selith had abandoned their alliance, and the Rinthal, despite their defeat, remained a powerful adversary. Every faction had its own vision for the future, and they were unwilling to surrender their autonomy to stop the galaxy's destruction. Desperate, Petrov turned to the one source of hope he had left, the Seeker. She had been the one to warn them about the dangers of the ether, and it was to her that humanity now turned for answers. The Seeker revealed that the only way to stop the cosmic force from destroying the galaxy was to sever humanity's connection to the ether entirely. But the process was perilous. If done incorrectly, it could destroy the very fabric of space-time itself, creating a chain reaction that would consume the entire galaxy. With no other choice, Petrov, Kor, and their team embarked on a final mission to reach the Archelian city hidden deep within the nebula. It was here, according to the Seeker, that the ancient Archelian technology could be found, technology that could sever the ether's influence. But the journey was not without its dangers. The Rinthal, in a last-ditch effort to destroy humanity once and for all, launched a final assault on the Archelian city, hoping to prevent them from accessing the technology that could undo their work. As Petrov and his team fought their way through the ruins of the Archelian city, they discovered the true nature of the ether. It was not just an energy source, it was a conduit to an ancient, multiversal network, a web of realities that spanned beyond their comprehension. The cosmic force that had been sealed away was a guardian of this network, and it had risen not just to destroy humanity, but to restore balance to a universe on the brink of collapse. In the heart of the city, Petrov and Kor found the device that could sever the ether's connection. But they were not alone. The Sovereign, desperate to harness the cosmic force, had followed them, and now the two forces collided in a battle that would decide the fate of the galaxy. The Sovereign, using the last remnants of his technology, sought to control the cosmic force, But in doing so, he inadvertently triggered the collapse of the ether network itself. As the device activated, the galaxy trembled. Petrov, Kor, and the team watched in horror as the ether's influence began to unravel, destabilizing space-time and tearing through the fabric of reality itself. The cosmic force, now fully awakened, lashed out in a final act of destruction, but it was too late. The device's power surged through the galaxy, severing humanity's connection to the ether, but at the cost of unimaginable destruction. Entire star systems blinked out of existence as the ether's power was undone. The galaxy, once teetering on the brink of annihilation, was now forever changed. The cosmic force, though defeated, had left its mark on the universe, and humanity was left to pick up the pieces. The destruction had shattered old alliances, but it had also created the opportunity for something new. The galaxy was no longer ruled by the empires of the past. It was now a fractured, chaotic place, where every species would have to decide how to rebuild and how to coexist. Humanity, having paid the ultimate price for their rise to power, now faced a reckoning. They had learned that the power they had sought to control was not meant for mortals to wield. But in the aftermath of the collapse, they also understood that the future was theirs to shape. They had survived the storm, and now, for better or for worse, they would decide what kind of galaxy they wanted to create. In the wake of the cataclysmic events that had torn through the galaxy, silence settled over the universe, like the aftermath of a violent storm. The battle for the ether had left its scars, planets reduced to rubble, entire star systems lost to the void, and once proud empires, now little more than memories. The wake of humanity's rise and fall was a fractured landscape, one that no longer resembled the galaxy of old. But from this chaos, new beginnings would emerge. General Ivan Petrov, his once unshakable confidence, now tempered by the horrors he had witnessed, stood at the edge of Earth's capital, gazing out across the ruins of his world. Humanity had survived, but at a terrible cost. The final destruction of the ether had severed their link to the cosmic force, but in doing so, it had shattered the very foundation of the systems that had sustained galactic civilization for centuries. Now, in the aftermath, Petrov's vision for a unified human race had never felt more uncertain. The United Earth Alliance, though once a beacon of hope for the survival of humankind, was now a hollow shell. Its military might was crippled, its alliances broken. Petrov, who had once led humanity into the heart of intergalactic warfare, now found himself standing at the crossroads of a fractured civilization. The task of rebuilding would not be easy. Earth's once great cities lay in ruins, and the loss of so many lives weighed heavily on the shoulders of those who remained. Dr. Elena Kor, who had stood by Petrov through every campaign and battle, now found herself grappling with a different challenge: the reconstruction of knowledge. The secrets of the ether had been erased, and with them, much of the scientific progress humanity had made in the last decades. What had once been their greatest triumph had become their greatest tragedy. But Kor was not one to back down from a challenge. Despite the setbacks, she had seen enough of the galaxy to know that there was still potential within humanity to rise above its own mistakes. Together with the remaining leaders of Earth's military and civilian sectors, she set her sights on rebuilding not just Earth, but the entire galactic community. The age of empires had ended. The age of cooperation and mutual survival was about to begin. Meanwhile, far from Earth, the galaxy's remaining powers were grappling with their own issues. The Rinthal Federation, despite their psychic superiority, had been left reeling from the devastation. Their once glorious fleets had been decimated, and their leaders now faced a choice: either rebuild from the ashes or surrender to the realization that their time as the galaxy's dominant force had come to an end. Their once crippling arrogance had been replaced by a new, more contemplative approach. The Federation's council convened in secret, weighing whether to offer a fragile hand of peace to the surviving human factions or to tighten their grip in a final, desperate effort to maintain control. The Draconi, too, faced internal turmoil. Having been neutral in the Galactic War, their people had quietly watched the events unfold from the shadows, their warships poised on the edge of battle, but never committing. They were a proud and honorable species, and now, their pride had been tested in ways they had never anticipated. With their allies, both human and alien, no longer in a position to protect them, they were left to decide if they should finally step into the light of galactic politics, or if they would retreat further into isolation. Even the Seleth, whose telepathic abilities had once made them formidable allies, found themselves questioning their past decisions. Their withdrawal from a human alliance had been a calculated move to preserve their own culture, but the galaxy's new reality forced them to rethink their position. Could they continue to hide in the shadows, or would they be forced to face the consequences of humanity's actions, both for themselves and the rest of the galaxy? And then there was the Sovereign, whose mercenary coalition had crumbled in the face of humanity's final efforts to sever the Ether's influence. Though the cosmic force had been defeated, the Sovereign had not been. The remnants of his forces had scattered across the galaxy, leaving behind a trail of broken alliances and shattered promises. The Sovereign himself, now a hunted fugitive, had become a symbol of defiance for those who believed the old order must never be restored. His vision of a new galaxy, one where the strong ruled and the weak were discarded, remained alive, though fractured and hidden. He would return, someday, when the galaxy was weak enough to bend to his will. As the survivors of the Galactic Wars began to rebuild, one thing became clear: there was no going back to the way things were. The ancient powers that had once ruled the stars had been irrevocably altered by humanity's ambition. Now, the question remained, what would the future hold for a galaxy that no longer had a single ruler, but instead a fractured, tenuous web of alliances and rivalries? Humanity, having faced its own collapse, was forced to confront its legacy. Petrov and Kor's leadership became the cornerstone of a new human agenda. They knew that if Earth was to lead in this new galaxy, it could not do so through conquest or dominance. The Ether had shown them that unchecked power led only to destruction. Cooperation, diplomacy, and a commitment to shared survival would be the new human creed. The rebuilding process was slow, fraught with conflict and setbacks, but for the first time in history, humanity found itself working alongside the very species it had once fought. The remnants of the Rinthal Federation, the Draconi, and even the Seleth reluctantly agreed to negotiate, realizing that the galaxy could no longer afford to remain divided. In time, the creation of a new galactic council became the focal point of the universe's recovery. Humanity, though still a young species, was now an integral part of this council, a symbol of resilience and rebirth. The Ether, once the source of humanity's greatest potential, had been severed, but in its wake, new possibilities emerged. The galaxy had been forever changed, and so too had humanity. No longer the reckless and untested species that had once dared to challenge the stars, humanity had become a key player in the ongoing struggle to maintain peace and order across the galaxy. As General Petrov stood in the ruins of his capital, gazing out at a universe reborn, he knew the road ahead would be long. But for the first time, humanity stood united not just in survival, but in hope. The galaxy was vast, and its future uncertain, but humanity's place within it was now secure, whether the galaxy's other inhabitants liked it or not. The true test had only just begun.